Warning: before using the training collar for the first time, take a few minutes to watch this video. Read the service instructions enclosed with every product and follow the directions given by the manufacturer. The DogTrace electronic training collars are intended for dog training. These may only be used by adults. Do not leave the electronic training collars within reach of children. Important: every dog is different. Always train your dog with regard to its temperament and physical and mental condition. Before starting training, check the sensitivity of the dog to the product. Always start the training lessons with the dog on a leash in a calm and safe area. If the dog is belligerent towards animals or people, always consult with a dog keeping and training specialist. Many dog owners tackle the communication, learning and training of their dogs every day. The DogTrace company has developed and makes an efficient, reliable and safe electronic training system for you. Electronic training collars, electronic no-bark collars and electronic invisible dog fences. The electronic training collar consists of a receiver which fits round the dog's neck and of a transmitter by which means the dog handler may transmit an audio signal and one or more corrective pulses. The dog handler may select the intensity of the corrective pulse according to the dog's responsiveness. The electronic training collar will help you influence your dog's behaviour reliably and clearly, both in your proximity and at a distance, and thereby train him how you want, which behaviour is correct and which not. A positive approach, willingness to understand the dog's thoughts, motivation and the electronic training collar will bring you success in training your canine friend. It will make you and your dog partners and perhaps a sports team if you wish. Dog collar assembling. First starting up. Before using your DogTrace electronic training collar for the first time, study carefully the service instructions enclosed by the manufacturer and then put it together. Battery installation replacement in your remote control. Locate a screw in the battery compartment cover on the back of the remote control. Use a crosshead screwdriver to remove it and swing the cover away carefully. Insert a new battery and mind the correct polarity indicated in the battery compartment plate. You will find the battery specification and type in the service instructions enclosed. Replace the battery cover and attach it with the screw using adequate force. Battery insertion replacement in the receiver dog collar. Remove 4 screws from the receiver cover, swing it away and insert a new battery in the receiver. Again, make sure that the polarity is correct. After inserting the battery, a tone signal should be heard to indicate the correct installation. If the tone signal is not heard, remove the battery from the receiver and retry its insertion. Before replacing the cover, check to see if the rubber sealing is correctly inserted in its groove. You can enhance the watertightness of the sealing by applying a small amount of Vaseline. The screws should be screwed in using adequate force. Mounting of electrodes. Every package contains 2 types of electrode. According to your dog's hair and size, choose the corresponding electrode length and screw it on the receiver by hand. Then tighten it slightly. Do not use any tools to tighten the electrodes. The receiver might get damaged. Turning the remote control on, off. After successful insertion of batteries and installation of electrodes, turn on the remote control by pressing down the on-off button for about 1 second. The LCD display will be lit after the activation. The indicator on the remote control for the Easy model starts flashing. Turning the receiver on/off. Turn on the receiver dog collar by placing the bottom of the remote control onto the target on the receiver for 1 second. The indicator on the receiver starts flashing green. This means that the receiver is ready for use. Familiarize yourself with the functions of the electronic training collar. You can turn off the receiver in the same way. After placing the bottom part of the remote control to the target of the receiver, the indicator will be lit red and the unit is turned off. The electronic DogTrace training collar is ready for use. The dog's age from which the use of electronic training collars is suitable is individual, and it depends on the mental and physical development of the dog. However, it should not be used on a dog younger than 6 months. Electronic DogTrace training collars are suitable for various dog breeds and sizes. Getting started. Getting the dog used to the collar. Before you start using the collar in training lessons, your dog must get used to it for several days to avoid undesirable conjunctions between the collar and its effects. Put the collar on your dog every time you let it go out of the pen or when you go for a walk. Correct mounting. Before mounting the collar, always check its functionality and battery level. Select a suitable length of contacts according to the size and type of dog and the length of its hair. Put the collar with the receiver on the dog's neck, tighten it and move the receiver up and down several times to provide the electrodes of the receiver with sufficient contact with the dog's skin and thus ensure faultless operation. Check whether the collar is not mounted too tightly. Checking the dog's sensitivity. Every dog differs in sensitivity, so always test your dog's sensitivity to a corrective pulse before using the collar. Calm the dog and carefully watch its responses to the lowest level corrective pulse used. The dog usually responds by moving the ears, turning the head, by having a lick or by changing its position. If the dog does not respond, check the collar for correct mounting. Add 1 level more on the remote control and repeat the entire action. When the dog responds, check the level of the pulse on the display or on the non-adjustable button, Easy model. Use this pulse for training in rest stages and when training in more demanding situations. Use a pulse 1 or 2 levels higher. When using a corrective pulse during training sessions, always watch the dog's responses carefully. The corrective pulse is not for punishing. Its intensity should always be sufficient enough for the dog to perceive and accept it. It should never cause pain and fear. Sound signal. All electronic DogTrace training collars allow you to communicate with your dog better using the sound signal. The sound signal can be used in the following cases. Firstly, as a warning before a corrective pulse is used. In this case, always use the sound signal 1 or 2 seconds before using the corrective pulse. Your dog will soon learn what behavior is incorrect or inappropriate, and that the sound signal means disagreement, wrong. This is the way you can simplify and intensify your dog's learning, and you can gradually remove the corrective pulse. In contrast to a voice command or a whistle, the sound signal is always the same. Learning is then faster and the responses learned are firmer. Secondly, the sound signal in the command place. You can use the sound signal instead of a command. In certain situations, it is more convenient to use a different sound signal with or without the voice command. The "come" call is one of those situations, especially if the distance is large or the environment is noisy. Here, you would have to call aloud or use more expressive voice intonation. Teach your dog the come order as described in chapter Basic Commands. At first, teach your dog to understand the verbal command and then connect it with the sound signal in the second and third phases in such a way that you start using the sound signal 1 or 2 seconds before your verbal command. Thirdly, the sound signal to highlight the correct behavior. The dog always learns best by motivation, reward, and on account of confirmation and consolidation of proper behavior. Whenever the dog does anything properly, praise him and give him a treat. To highlight the good equals correct command, and thus the right situation and behavior, you can use the sound signal from the electronic training collar. Whenever your dog behaves properly, use the remote control to send a short sound signal to the collar and give him a treat and lots of praise. The dog learns what behavior is desirable and he will soon behave in this way. Basic commands.